Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Bridging Borders, where we bring you thought leaders, visionaries, and change makers from around the world. Sachio and I, Nitin, are your hosts today. Today, we have the privilege of hosting a true innovator in the world of finance and business and social impact, Mr. Ken Shibusawa. He's a remarkable individual in every sense of the word. He wears multiple hats, each more impressive than the last. Not only is he the CEO of Shibusawa and Company Inc., a strategic advisory firm specializing in alternative investments, ESG, SDGs alignment, and human resource development, but he's also the visionary behind Common Asset Management, a mutual fund dedicated to empowering Japanese households with long-term investment opportunity. In 2023, Mr. Shibusawa went a step further and founded End Capital, an impact fund bridging Japan and Africa, showcasing his unwavering commitment to creating positive change on a global scale. Mr. Shibusawa is more than just a financial expert. He's recognized as Japan's leading advocate for stakeholder capitalism, a voice for ethical business practices and sustainability. His work extends beyond business, where he expresses the profound management philosophy of his ancestor, Eiichi Shibusawa, known as the father of Japanese capitalism, and adapts it for the modern era. As if his impressive professional journey wasn't enough, Mr. Shibusawa wears many hats in the world of academia and policy. He serves as an advisor to the Office of the President at the University of Tokyo and is a respected steering committee member of the UNDP SDG Impact Steering Group. Additionally, he's also a co-chair of the Global South Africa Committee of Keizai Doyukai, the Japan Association of Corporate Executives. He also plays a pivotal role as a council member in Prime Minister Kishida's forward-thinking policy initiative, the new form of capitalism. Before achieving these remarkable milestones, Mr. Shibusawa spent 5 years at Moore Capital Management, a global macro hedge fund, where he founded and successfully managed the Tokyo office. His journey also includes pivotal roles at JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, rounding out a career that spans the globe and encompasses diverse experiences. We are truly honored to have Mr. Ken Shibusawa on the podcast today. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Shibusawa.
Well, thank you, Nitin, for that introduction. I hope my conversation can overcome that introduction that you provided me. It's very nice of you, and very nice to be here.
With such a illustrious career, Mr. Shibusawa, we are eager to hear about your journey and the experiences that shaped it. Could you share with our audience a bit more about the significant challenges you have faced along the way? Such a long career, such a diverse career, and your experiences, how you have overcome those challenges that could inspire many of our audience, the leaders like us who are, who can learn from you a lot.
Well, it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a long time since I embarked on my journey. If you want to go way back, my biggest challenge was an identity crisis, because I was made in Japan, born in Japan, but I grew up in the United States. Had many fond memories of a good friendship there all the way through college, but I never really knew who I was, because in the U.S. I was a Japanese guy, not fully American. Back in Japan, I was sort of this, in Japanese we would say henna Nihonjin, sort of, not of us, because obviously you weren't raised in the same environment. So my initial first challenge was trying to figure out who I was, actually. Which I think for many people in their different, situations are probably the same.
Oh, that's very interesting. And can you add on a little bit, how did you define, because you said that's very interesting that you were, you have experience working in US mainly, but you were born in Japan, right? So
yeah,
how have you shaped it in a very positive context? Your career is pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, and I think, come to think of it, my initial challenge and how I overcame it probably led to my other things that I'm doing right now, because in a sense, in my introduction, it was sort of hard to put a slot where I was. Are you an asset manager? Are you in policy making? Are you an academic? And so I have a very difficult time trying to do my self-introduction, basically. But come to think of it, my initial challenge was my identity crisis. And when I started working here in Japan initially, I was actually in the nonprofit sector, an NGO, international NGO, and doing some interesting work. But again, I had this identity crisis. But one day, I had this sort of, I don't know, wake up call in a sense. I asked myself, did I want to be, and asked another question, and that question was, did I want to just be a Japanese that knew only about Japan? And the question was no. And I figured, oh wow, the way I am is what I wanted to be. And that really took a big load off of my shoulders. And so in retrospect, it's the first time I really thought about it this way until you posed me this question, is the fact that I feel relatively comfortable playing different roles with different hats. So in a sense, do I want to be a professional just in the asset management business? Probably not. Do I want to be in policy making, policy related business? Probably not. Do I want to be an academic? Definitely not. I'm not an academic. But so I just feel comfortable the way I am, and I think in the end, in your professional career, you have to strive for the next level always. But I think always being comfortable with who you are really gives you a foundation for challenges and for facing obstacles that will inevitably come your way, especially when you're trying to do something different.
That's very impressive.
Very impressive. Yes. Shibusawa-san, I think it's really what you mentioned about your experiences in identity crisis really resonates. Also, my personal view as experiences when I was young as well, and that's a great lesson to be learned. If I would like to ask, in terms of also like leading and making change in organization, what do you think your experiences of that has influenced your approach to leading organization?
Well, so in my commons asset management company, I remember one young colleague, she said, "Oh, Shibusawa-san, you're Uchujin," meaning you're from outer space, basically, and I took it as a compliment. And the reason why she said that is because, like, I mean, Shibusawa-san is never around, but when all of a sudden he shows up and starts saying, we need to focus on SDGs, for instance, and everybody goes, what the heck are SDGs back in 2015? And then he just kind of, zooms back up. So to me, the reason why commons asset management got to where it was one, I kind of provided this sort of out of space, sort of big sort of picture view of way things look, way things are going. But I had a good partner, and he was he was my founding partner, Tetsuro E, and he was the guy that ran the day-to-day for me. And so in any kind of successful startup or venture or any new businesses, you're obviously not going to be doing anything alone by yourself, because that's always very limiting. But even though you're just one person, if you find the right partner, and you're not going to always be cheek to cheek on some issues, because we're two different people with different backgrounds, but if you keep the North Star the same, where we're heading, and that's, I think that's one success for, whether you're a startup or whether you're a large corporation. You always need that North Star, and at the same time, you're never going to be able to achieve anything by yourself. And so you have to be I guess, humble to your capabilities.
Thank
Because
you.
because personally, I'm not the solution for everybody, obviously. But together with other people, maybe we will come up with an organic sense of being, where we can answer to many different people's needs.
Exactly. I totally agree on having a lot allies in terms of making things to change, and especially that we feel comfortable being different. And I think
Mm.
that's something that really empowers in any of the initiative that we're trying to do. So thank you for that. Yes.
I think that's especially in today's world when you're working in such a diverse environment and globally so interconnected, that's difficult to pinpoint. I think
Mm-hmm.
acceptance of who you are is, I think it's a core, and it's like Sachio was saying, it resonates with me also because I'm born in India, but I'm a product of Japan. I'm whole life for 2 decades
I
of
see.
working.
Oh, well. Wow.
So that's pretty, you put it in a nicest way, I would say.
Oh.
Coming back to the North Star, that's pretty impressive what you were saying, that, how you're bringing the role of the partner, but the diversity has been leveraged by being very clear about the North Star. So another question I have is that, it's very evident from your journey that you have been guided by innovation and purpose. And as we explore the influences that have shaped your remarkable career, so I want to know, like, who have been your biggest mentors or the source of inspirations, and what about of them has left a lasting impact on your, finding that North Star, what you mentioned, or in your professional path?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of mentors along the way that I can think of, and people's faces just popped up inside my head when you're asking me this question. I don't know, but maybe my biggest mentor I never met physically, and the reason why I said that is I met him when I was 40 years old, as I was starting my company. And I met him through not physical contact, but through the words that he left behind, which was my grandfather's grandfather, H. Shibusawa, who's known here in Japan as the father of Japanese capitalism, and whose face will appear on the 10,000 yen bill next year around this time. Which is a big honor for the Shibusawa family, obviously, but a tribute to what he accomplished back over 150 years ago. But growing up in the United States, working for U.S. investment banks and funds here in Japan, I never really had a direct interaction, obviously, with my great grandfather. He passed away in 1931, and I was born in 1961. So there's this 30-year blank. But I was starting my own company. I thought, he started about 500 companies. Maybe there's a message there. And so I start reading through his old writings. And frankly, I had a difficult time initially because my highest level of education I had in Japan was second grade in elementary school. And so, it was challenging initially. So I got my father to translate Japanese into Japanese. But when you actually digest the words and re-express it in your own words, these words are very pertinent to the present world. And basically, he was a visionary. He knew that Japan could be a better place and had to be a better place. And he tried initially by trying to overthrow the local shogun government locally. I'm glad he was also pragmatic and knew when to fall back on your initial plans when things weren't going well. If he didn't have that skill, I would definitely be being on your podcast right now. But his North Star was to, was a better Japan, and because he knew it could be a better Japan unless it was a better Japan. That back in those days, you would be, you'd be overcome by other neighboring and not so neighboring powers. And so, but that was his North Star, and so which basically meant that he was never satisfied, I believe, with the status quo.
Mm.
Of course, he was, he treasured tradition and all this other stuff that's very, very important in any culture. But I think he, although he didn't express it this way, but reading his wording, that he figured out the difference between the status quo and sustainability. Sustainability is not doing the same thing forever and ever. That's the status quo. The reason why status quo doesn't work in any evolutionary environment, whether it's a natural environment or business environment, is unless you're, extremely lucky, just doing the same thing over and over again, it never works, because the environment changes, whether it's business environment, competitive environment, and things like this. So you always have to be creating something new, new creation, new innovation, which basically means, you always have to question the status quo. What could be better? And I think that was the message he left for us. And so for me, when I have my own professional or personal problems, I kind of like, well, what would have age done in my shoes? And I can only imagine, because I've never met the guy, right? but based upon the readings that I did on his thinking, I would say, well, my problems are probably much, much smaller than the problems he had to overcome, and which he did, basically. So when I get sort of depressed or sort of flustered, I just kind of ask that question: what would he have done? And if I can't find the answer, I just go to sleep and wake up next morning. and luckily I get to wake up next morning again. So, and start once again. So
That's pretty interesting what you were saying about challenging the status quo. Do you think is it missing in the current the context where we are in Japan, or
yeah, in any society, right? People don't like to change, really. People like the easiest common denominator, the easiest answer, because people, including myself, are innately lazy. And so you want the yesterday to be same as today and today same as tomorrow. But we know that's not going to happen because we all age. And it's not just us. The company ages, society ages, everything ages, and for a good reason, because the environment always changes, and the new generation or new you always need to adapt to that new environment.
And funny enough is that the only thing certain is the change, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's the only certainty we have, but we run away from it and feel uncomfortable about doing.
Yeah. Another mentor that I think of off the top of my head really actually is a woman. She was the president of More Capital, Elaine Crocker, and the founder and the CIO is Louis Moore Bacon, and he was the engine for the productivity of the fund. He was the chief guy, basically, and More Capital would have never started without Louis, obviously. But without Elaine, I think it would have been a short ride, or organizationally wise. I hope I don't get killed by saying this, because this is a podcast I just forgot. But I think I would believe Lewis in his own ways would probably agree with me in the fact that he's not a manager of organization; he's a manager of a fund. And just to have Elaine managing many traders and fund managers and many professionals who are, tend to be a little bit overconfident about many things, because that's the nature of the beast. But man, she was tough. And the reason why I respect her so much was it only took, she never said, let me think about it. So you go to her with an issue and she goes, okay. And she picks up the phone and says, this needs to be done, this. That knocked me out. I was just like, wow. Most people, when you go to, with an issue, they go, oh, okay, I understand you can. Okay, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. I never saw that. So being on the other end of the conversation, obviously, it's pretty stressful, but very fair. It's very, very, very fair. So yeah. So I really respected that. Well, I respected both of the because Lewis was the genius in terms of just what he did, and Elaine was this just, gosh, it was just like a stern den mother with a warm heart, basically.
A perfect trait for the leader. Great leader, right?
And that, again, as I mentioned, is the combination that was necessary, right?
Yeah.
I guess having these two of your North Stars, and also that your Mr. Shibusawa's point about his North Star and also challenge the status quo. I think that's a lot of things that you have also been impacted in a very positive way. And the question I would like to ask would be that what advice would you like to give to other business people, business leader in the global business environment, either working in Japan or working abroad, for moving forward? We'd like to hear.
Okay, well, one thing's for sure: don't do what I was doing. And the reason why I said that is there's a different model for all different people. And there's no one sort of cookie cutter model where you just say, hey, this is the way you lead an organization, start a new company. Everybody has a different way. But one advice, or one thing that I certainly always think about, is a question. It's not about the what or the how, because you know what the what is, and because it's in your face, and you'll eventually figure out the how. But and if not, you fail, and you just become irrelevant. But actually the most important question is the why. Why are you doing what you're doing now, and what in the position that you're doing? And I think many people kind of get lost in the what and the hows, and don't ask the question why in any situation when conflict or challenge it happens, in business or in society. There's always a reason, and if you have, you I can only see what I can see and feel and touch because I'm just me. But then that goes for the other people, and obviously I'm not the other person, so I don't know what the other person is seeing unless I use my imagination and think, why is he or she reacting or thinking that way? And you never know. I mean, because you're not that other person, but you always have to be, I think, asking that question. And just sort of, the day-to-day managing day-to-day tasks. That's very important, obviously. And every time you do a task and you ask the question, why the heck am I doing this? You're not gonna get it done, obviously. But I think you always need to be sort of, what's the word in English? I don't know, I can't think of the word in English, but it's seeing yourself with a different eye, or a different perspective, not something that's in front of you, but sort of. And you can only do that if you use a little bit of imagination.
See.
Which I found very interesting with a conversation with a biologist about 10-15 years ago. Apparently, only human beings have the power of imagination. No other living organism in our planet has that ability, apparently, which means basically imagination means we're only physically in one place, obviously.
Yes.
But in our minds, we could be anywhere at the same time.
Interesting.
Physically, in the past, present, you can be here in Tokyo, you could be in, Mumbai, you could be in, North Pole, at least in your imagination, right? And that's why human beings have empathy about what's going on in other, places that you have never been and you'll never be, but you can feel the happiness and the pain and the aspirations of people, that you'll never see, but you can feel it if you imagine.
Sure.
And that's the question I think we need to be asking, especially in our current very, I would say, challenging global environment.
Thank you, because I think with so many things that that is coming around us, we're always being asked why are we doing it. I think, and also as you mentioned, like what and how is something that we kind of think about, but definitely I think your point about thinking about how and why and looking from the different perspectives will probably help for us to focus on something and where we want to go. So I think that's great.
Yeah, and the difficulty with why is there's no easy answer. How you say, well, this is the way you do it, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. You follow the menu and you go, oh, okay. And the what is easy because you can just show it to the person. But why, it's like, but then, all people have it when they were born, right? You remember when you were kids and we were kids, and so you said, why? And the parents said, they'll answer you, but you get to a point, they just go, oh, this is the way it is. And I got it, and I did to my children. But when you do that, you just sort of stifle the curiosity that human beings innately have when they're born, which is a shame.
You're totally right. Definitely.
It's fascinating also because you said about the contextual and personifying, like what, and seeing it from others' perspective also, because that's what we as humans have this, right? The imagination. And we can see what other people are thinking. And that's very fascinating that if we start doing that, I just realized that, that will solve not only the business problems, but a lot of political chaos what we are seeing.
Yeah.
Definitely the stakeholder capitalism, and when you think about that's also one thing probably related to when you think about more broader perspective of why, and that's like a new paradigm of looking at things. So that's a very interesting point that
it is a new paradigm in a sense. The word is a new paradigm, but the concept was definitely around 150 years ago, because when my great-great-grandfather imported capitalism into Japan, it wasn't about the shareholder making money or just a few people, but it was about bringing wealth to the people of the nation, and people playing different parts, their respective roles. He called it Gappon Shugi in Japanese. But to me, that's stakeholder capitalism.
Very interesting. You're right.
I think with that, we are at the end of our questions. So, Sachio, if you have any, if you'd like to summarize, but
yes. Well, thank you so much. I guess going back to your point that you mentioned about the North Star, I think we always look for North Star, also including myself, experiencing different environment. We look at things for that, and definitely we continue to look at the North Star, definitely. And as we look through so many things, and with different priorities, asking the why, and looking from the various perspectives and being comfortable being different. Definitely that's something that we need when we think about having a dialogue with different people in other parts of the world. So definitely your insights are very, very inspiring for me and all the listeners in this podcast. So
Well, I'm glad.
thank you
I'm
so
glad.
much for this.
I'm glad.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
really grateful for giving your time today. I really appreciate that. And it's like Sachio was saying, I think it's right inside there, not only for us, but for the audience also.
Well, thank you, Nitin and Sachio. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. All right. Bye.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.